I arrived at my father's house on a rain-soaked afternoon, the sky bruised with low clouds that threatened to spill more secrets. The old Victorian stood like a weary sentinel at the end of the lane, its paint peeling and gutters sagging with winter's sorrow. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp carpet and cold wood, as though the house exhaled a long-held breath when I unlocked the door. I was here to clear out the last of my grandfather's belongings, a chore I had postponed for years, drawn by equal parts duty and dread. Upstairs, in a room my grandfather once used for his peculiar collections, I found it. A towering mahogany wardrobe whose doors were carved with swirling ivy and hidden faces that seemed to shift in the dim light. Dust motes danced in sunbeams slicing through the curtained window, and the silence of the room felt like a held note, waiting for something to break it. I hesitated, hand on the cold brass handle, feeling a faint vibration under my fingertips, almost a pulse. The wardrobe was locked, but the old padlock lay open on the floorboards, as though it had been waiting for me. I drew closer, breath catching as I sensed movement behind the polished wood. The floorboards groaned under some unseen weight, though I stood alone in the empty room. A cold spot spread across the back of my neck, prickling my skin, and the scent of damp earth and ozone filled my nostrils, strange in a sealed attic space. Despite every rational bone in my body screaming to step away, I reached out and pulled the doors open. The hinges whispered in protest, and a musty gust of air escaped, a breath of ages trapped behind cedar panels. Inside, the wardrobe was empty except for a single wooden hanger and a length of pale fabric draped over it like a veil. I must have blinked, because in that instant I thought I saw the fabric tremble. My rational mind told me it was the breeze from the cracked window. My heart said it was something else. A soft, almost imperceptible voice drifted from within the hollow space. So faint I thought I had imagined it. But when I stepped closer, the whisper returned, clearer and more urgent, as if urging me to enter. I froze. The voice was coaxing, familiar. I leaned in, chest tightening as the wardrobe's darkness beckoned. At that moment, I understood that this ancient piece of furniture held more than moth-eaten coats and forgotten memories. It held the echoes of someone's story, and perhaps it would soon hold mine. I stepped into the wardrobe's shadowy chamber, as though drawn through a veil, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The air inside was cold and stagnant, carrying the faint, cloying scent of mothballs and something deeper, like damp moss pressed against ancient stone. My shoes tapped against worn wooden floorboards that groaned under my weight, as if protesting this trespass into forbidden space. Each breath I drew felt stolen, thick with dust motes swirling in the narrow beam of flashlight I'd wrested from my pocket. My fingers traced the carved ivy on the opposite wall, and I felt a whisper of movement, something shifting just beyond sight. I crouched to examine the clothes hanging on the lone hanger. A faded child's dress, its lace hem torn, the fabric stiff with age. A sudden chill swept through the chamber, and goosebumps rose on my skin as I lifted the dress gingerly, imagining the small body that once wore it. Behind it, hidden in a narrow recess, I found a bundle of yellowed letters tied with fraying string. The handwriting was precise and deliberate. My grandmother's. I untied them, and the first note crackled open. To Eleanor, my lost one. Forgive me for the promises I could not keep. My pulse thundered as I read, the words echoing in the silent darkness. A soft thump sounded above me, resonating through the wardrobe's wood like a heartbeat of its own. I froze, breath lodged in my throat. The letters slipped, scattering across the floor in a pale arc. One fluttered against the back wall, revealing a photograph. A sepia-toned image of a small girl with bright eyes peering into the camera, a dress identical to the one before me. But her expression was sorrowful, almost pleading, as if she knew someone would find this picture long after she was gone. The corners of the photo curled with age, and when I pressed it flat with trembling fingers, I heard the floorboards groan once more, closer now, as though a hidden presence drew near. Panic flickered, sharp and cold. I realized then that the wardrobe was not merely a container of memories. It was a conduit, linking me to a story I had never known, demanding I finish what my grandmother had left unfinished. The letters were my thread into that past, the dress a fragment of a life cut short. And as I gathered the photograph and letters to my chest, I understood with sudden clarity that this was a path I could not abandon. The weight of responsibility settled in my bones. I had to uncover what happened to Eleanor, or risk becoming yet another lost echo in this haunted chamber. The floorboards behind the wardrobe shifted under my weight, groaning like a beast disturbed from slumber, and I realized the carved panels hid more than shadows. My fingers traced the swirling ivy until I found a barely perceptible seam. My breath hitched as I pried it open, revealing a narrow hatch cut into the subfloor. A dank gust of air rose up, a mix of damp earth and stale perfume that smelled like the nursery long since stripped of life. I shined my flashlight down the hatch and saw a wooden ladder, its rungs slick with mildew and age. The ladder trembled under my first step, as though warning me to retreat. But I climbed down, each descent echoing like distant thunder, the cold enveloping me in an unnatural embrace. At the bottom, I emerged into a small, vaulted chamber carved from stone, its walls slick with subterranean moisture. The air here pulsed with ozone, and I tasted electricity on my tongue. A single, dusty rocking horse sat in the center, its paint flaked into ghostly white patches. I knelt and ran a fingertip along its carved mane, and a faint click rang out, like a toy wound for play. My pulse spiked. In the gloom, I spotted a battered trunk tucked into a corner. I crawled to it, my knees slick against the cold floor, and pried open the rusted latch. Inside lay a child's dress folded neatly atop a collection of brittle letters and a small music box missing its carousel horses. I lifted the letters and read by flashlight. They were Eleanor's own words, matching the photograph's sorrowful eyes. She wrote of loneliness, of promises whispered in this very chamber by a voice she trusted. The last letter ended mid-sentence. "Mother says I must stay here forever." My chest tightened. Behind me, a soft scuff sounded, as though someone rocked on the horse. I spun and caught a glimpse of movement, a pale shape vanishing around a stone pillar. My blood froze. I felt her presence, a small hand brushing the air, a breath of longing against my cheek. The dress in my arms trembled, and the music box shuddered with mute voices. There was no turning back now. I gathered the dress and letters, my mission clear: to reunite Eleanor's story with the light of day, or become another whisper lost in this subterranean cradle of memory. I climbed the ladder and hauled the dress, letters, and music box back into the hush of the attic, every step a hammering reminder of Eleanor's unseen presence beside me. My fingers trembled as I laid the items on the dusty floorboards, the air thick with the coppery scent of memory and the faint electric tingle of something watching. I unfolded the dress and draped it over the wardrobe's central bar. The fabric fell like a pale shroud across the carved faces, and a soft groan emanated from within the wood, as though the house itself exhaled. I arranged the letters in a neat stack and lifted the photograph, pressing it to the dress's lace bodice. A sudden draft rattled the attic window, scattering dust into lamplight, and I heard a child's sigh, quivering with relief. My heart leaped, hope and dread entwined in my chest. I opened the music box and let its silent carousel wind down, listening to the hollow clicks as if each one measured a heartbeat. Then I read Eleanor's last words aloud. voice steady despite the chill that crept up my spine. "I forgive you, Mother, but only if you remember me." The attic seemed to pulse with her longing, the shadows flickering like fingertips against the walls. The dress fluttered. The photograph lifted an inch from the bodice as though held by invisible breath. I swallowed hard and spoke her name, soft and sure, willing the words to bridge the gap of decades. Silence held for a trembling moment. Then the air grew warm, and the letters lifted in a swirl before landing gently on the floor in chronological order. The wardrobe doors creaked shut on their own, sealing the shroud of fabric inside, and I felt a final light brush against my hand. Eleanor's touch. I sank to my knees, breath flooding my lungs, and realized I was crying for a child I had never met, and a grandmother who mourned in silence. The attic returned to stillness, but it felt less empty now, suffused with the quiet echo of release. I gathered the dress, letters, and music box and carried them downstairs to my father's study, where I placed them on the mantel beside Eleanor's photograph in the family album. The music box chimed once, a single clear note that lingered in the air like a benediction. In that moment, I understood that memory is not a prison, but a promise, a bond that neither time nor sorrow can sever. I left the house as the first winter storm began, my shoulders lighter and my heart reshaped by what I had unearthed and finally laid to rest. If you felt Eleanor's story stir something in you, please like this video and subscribe to Whisper Tales for more haunting journeys that honor the echoes of those we've lost. As I walked away from the old house, the winter wind gnawed at my coat and carried with it a whisper of Eleanor's lullaby, not as a lament, but as a soft benediction. I felt her presence in every gust, a reminder that the past we carry can shape us only if we allow it to remain unspoken. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn to forgotten mementos in my own life. An heirloom pocket watch, letters I never sent, photographs I once dismissed. Each held its own story of loss and longing, and I began to honor them rather than hide from them. My relationships shifted. I listened more attentively to my father's quiet grief, offered comfort to friends wrestling with their own regrets, and found a profound connection in shared remembrance. Late at night, the melody of Eleanor's dress and the echo of her words would drift through my dreams, no longer a trap, but an invitation to carry her memory forward. I started writing her story, interweaving her letters with my own reflections, creating a living archive of grief transformed into understanding. The act of remembering became an act of love, a conscious choice to bridge the chasm between what was lost and what still endures. Standing before the wardrobe one last time, I felt neither fear nor duty, but a gentle gratitude. The faces carved into the wood seemed to watch me with quiet approval as I closed the doors and wiped away the lingering dust. The chamber beneath remained sealed, its secrets honored, its sorrow at peace. I left the house knowing that memory is both a sanctuary and a mirror. It reveals who we were, who we are, and who we have the power to become. I returned to my life changed, more empathetic, more present, and unafraid to encounter the echoes of the past. If Eleanor's story moved you, if it stirred something deep within your own memories, please like this video and subscribe to Whisper Tales for more atmospheric journeys into the mysteries that haunt our hearts.